Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
Stop right there. Yeah, you. If you like all things entertainment, current events, or Hollywood, then look no further. Creator to Creators, hosted by director Meosha of Horror Noir, interviews filmmakers and creatives from around the world. Join in on the fun, guest celebrities, and informative information to have as a creator. Hit subscribe and stay connected to Creator to Creators.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Creator to Creators today. Today we have a special guest,
Brent Harvey.
Woohoo! Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks. That's my voicemail, Brent Harvey. I go Brent because everybody messes up my name. They call me Brent, so I have to go Brent Harvey.
Brent. It's a really nice name. How do people mess it up? Like I don't get it.
Because they don't listen, and to be fair, probably because of my accent, they the BR. It's funny because I worked with my dad. We had a family business, and my dad, myself, my grandfather, and his brother, so my great uncle, all worked together, and we had matching blue, like, mechanic shirts with our names on it. And mine said Brent, and I worked side by side with my great uncle for 7 years, and to this day, he's like 96 now, but to this day he still calls me Brett. So I'll even in my email, my email even says Brent Harvey Films, right, at gmail.com, and people will literally respond back, "Hey Brett," and it's like it's in my email. So I don't know.
Oh my God. I could go on that name thing forever, but like I think you're right. It's people just don't pay attention. And that's just what it is. I posted a picture of the birthday the post, and I had friends and family that were like, "Happy birthday." I was like, "You guys know me."
It's not my birthday. Like, you gave birth to me, like, or whatever. Like, could you imagine your mom like, "Oh, I forgot. Is it your birthday?" No, but I think part of it is not listening. The other part is curiosity. Like when people say their names or say something, I'll sit there. If I don't understand, I'm like, "I'm sorry. Can you say it?" Because I want to honor. I don't, because of how people butcher my name and stuff like that. But
yeah,
it's Kevin Hart. I like watch his, I don't know if you call it talk show podcast he has, where he sits down heart to heart.
Love that.
And I've been listening to that, and he, like, when somebody says a word he doesn't know, he's like, "Can you explain that to me?" And his whole thing is like, I'm not ashamed of asking a question to something I don't know. Or even Tyler Perry, when he was actually talking to him, he's like, "I usually find I'm the only number one black man in the room, like when it comes to like studio meetings and things like that." And or with his his financial advisor, whatever. And if he doesn't understand something, he'll stop him and go, "Explain that to me." He's like, they're both like, I'm not ashamed to ask the question that I don't understand. I don't just go, just out of embarrassment. And I think that's a big part of it too. People don't want to be embarrassed and feel like, "Oh, I'm an idiot," and people will make fun of me or think less of me. So me, I don't care. Like, I want to actually know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, yeah.
So I always I love like talking to just hearing people's stories. First of all, like your childhood, what was that like? Just a little bit. And then like, how did you kind of find your way into this really wild business that we're in?
Man, it's fun. I shouldn't say it's funny, because life unfolds in interesting ways, but that we're having this conversation now, because if you would have asked me 6 months ago, a year, 10 years ago, to tell you, just even 6 months ago, maybe even 4 months ago, tell you about my childhood, it would be a completely different perspective than what it is now.
Mm.
My childhood has been, it was, I mean, it was a good childhood. It really was when I look back at it. Like I was blessed to have kind of a big family. My mom and dad got divorced when I was young. I was like 4 or 5. And my dad, we had a family farm that had been in the family passed down for a couple generations. And my dad had moved onto that property. There was a 100-year-old hay barn. There was the farmhouse, which my aunt uncle lived in with had my cousins, my grandparents. My dad built a little house on the property that my grandparents lived in, and then we lived in this barn that we converted over time into a house and things like. And the family business was there too. So when I was out there, it kind of was. I spent a lot of time with my cousin and my grandparents, and so that, and then with my mom, my grandmother lived right just about a mile down the road and things like that, and at any given time. So and like my mom lived more in the city and my dad lived out in the farm. So I kind of got those two different experiences of, like, when my mom bought the house she bought and we moved into it, like literally there were drug dealers next door and drive-by shootings. It was the height of like Boys in the Hood, the early
Wow.
90s, when gang violence was at its highest and being emulated all across the country. And but then I go to my dad's and I'm driving tractors and building things with my hands. So it was a very eclectic, wide, experience. And, it was interesting. I was exposed to my dad. My dad actually exposed me to, and my sisters, to music
Mm.
and movies early on. Like when I reference music to people, they're usually surprised. They're like, how do you know that? Like that was before you were born. And I'm like, just because it came before I was in existence in that sense doesn't mean I should negate it.
Right.
So my dad exposed us to music, and I don't know about my sisters as much. I'd have to ask them, but I know music because when we talk, we're always referencing music because of what my dad exposed us to. But with film, my dad my dad exposed me to film early on, and it was actually, I realized recently, it was a bonding experience
Mm.
for him and I. And it was one of the only healthy ones that I remember, from my perspective of being healthy, because as we worked together, as I got older and stuff like that, it was more conflict than it was an alignment of enjoying something. So I remember my dad, back in the day when you had VHS and things like that. I was actually talking about this yesterday about like making mixed tapes and like having to sit there and wait for the DJ to stop talking, and hopefully he wasn't talking over the song, and you hit the record button and then you'd stop it, and you're kind of like editing the tape on the fly. But my dad actually recorded not only Thriller, because Thriller came out in 83, I believe. And it was the biggest thing, but the music video Thriller was so big because it was a short film.
Mm-hmm.
And he recorded that, and then they also soon after they released a behind the scenes, the making of, from Michael Jackson Into the Werewolf. Was at the time that CG was so, I don't even know if it really existed in that sense. Well, it had, because Star Wars, but they would put on a little bit of makeup, shoot a couple frames, add more, and it was this process. And then when they put it together, he transitioned.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad sitting in, and also there's a music video by Aha called Take On Me. And in it, a guy is in live action. He jumps into the TV and it becomes like a sketchbook. The whole music video is a sketchbook of him walking through this world. I think he's chasing a woman, trying to catch up to her, but it's all like, it looks like animated sketchbooks.
That's awesome.
and it was those were both game changers. But I remember my dad we would sit down, and we would do it like every couple weeks or something like that, and sit down, and we'd watch it, and he'd explain to me how because I was just like, I don't understand. He's like, look, son, they're adding makeup, they're shooting some of it, they're stopping, they're putting him back in the makeup chair, and you would talk me through it.
Mm-hmm.
He also took me to my first movie in the cinema, which was the first Top Gun.
Oh, wow.
Which was,
Wow.
I mean, it was just such a big movie. It blew my mind.
Yeah.
And so that part of exposure to music and film came from my dad. My mom's she's a brilliant artist in her own right. She's like, when my nieces, like every year for Halloween, when they're like, she goes, what are you guys going to be? And they're like, well, we're going to be this. And she will then create a whole costume to go along with that. And
that's awesome.
She if you saw, she put together one year, she put together a Mary Poppins.
Oh, I love that.
That was so cool. Good. It rivaled the studio's Mary Poppins outfit. Like, and she does it, she just pulls it out of random stuff. Her mind's like that. So she was always very artistic in that sense, even though she didn't pursue it, as a career, but so I was always exposed to it there. And so my mom even talks about, she's like, when you were younger, and like I started wrestling when I was in 7th grade, and she's like, the guys would come over and like want to take you out and stuff like that. And I'd come up and knock on your door. You were in your room by yourself, and knock on the door and go, hey, the guys are here. And she said, you'd just be sitting there drawing or something like that, and I'd be like, no, I'm good. And I'd just be drawing. I also remember, this pops in my head every once in a while, there was a phase where I had like a boom box kind of. It was nice. It wasn't like the 80s massive boom box, but it was kind of a boom box. And I had it on my desk, and I had headphones, and I'd put one to the side, and I was acting like a radio DJ kind of. Love it. And like, there was a time period. So I was always very creative.
I love that.
In my childhood. And I was blessed because I got to experience, again, like the city life and also the farm life. And it wasn't till recently that I've really looked back at that and go, because prior to it, I looked at my childhood as what I didn't have. And I'd be like, I didn't have this and I didn't have that. And rightfully so. Like, we didn't have a lot of money in a sense, but we also weren't like, if I look back and I'm honest, like, we had some tough times. Like, there was a Christmas where there were no presents. Like, we got up, there were no presents under the tree or whatever. But looking back at it, I'm just like, I had such a, there was so much that I did have that actually mattered, like grandparents and things like that, and experiences. That I did have. And like, we never went without a meal, and we never went without clothes, even though they were like cheap clothes or hand-me-downs or whatever. So I had a really good childhood in that sense. And, a lot of love, even though it wasn't always expressed properly or, things like that. And, I've had to realize that about my parents, is like, they could only give what was given to them. Exactly. And, it's not a big thing, especially that generation. And before that wasn't big on self work, like becoming better than the generation before.
Right.
In emotional intelligence and things like that. So they did better than their parents, but just slightly. Which is traditional. So it's like, I look back, for years I look back at that and I'm like, why would you do that to your children? And then I just realized, like, they thought that was the right thing. Especially, a big part of it was realizing that my mom was 25 when she had me, and I'm the second, and my dad was 22, 23. And I'm like, man, if I had 2 kids at that age, I'd screw them up too. Like,
yeah, it's hard.
the age I am now, my dad was my age now when my youngest sister was graduating high school.
Okay.
So the age I am now, if I was to think that I had 3 grown kids and all of them were either in college or going to college, like that's hard for me to, because I look back at the past 20 years since I left high school, and I'm just like, man, I'm just now starting to kind of understand how I would raise a child and articulate to them and guide them through this crazy world we live in. So
Really crazy.
it's definitely, it's interesting. I mean, but it's, I think it's further possible evidence that it's a video game because of all the challenges. Like, you're constantly having to level up, and it's like, well, that isn't that what video games are?
Exactly.
I had this thought. I want to put this on record before I forget, because someplace, but I had this epiphany the other day. You know how a social media, like, it's set up with these algorithms that whatever you pay attention to most, like the more things you click on, it creates more of a timeline to mimic that.
Yep. Yeah.
Is that not the same as what we put our focus on, the world reflects? So what if it's just a massive algorithm that's just giving us more of what we're clicking on, in a sense of our daily attention? So I'm just like, holy shit, like the world is just a massive algorithm that's giving us what we.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
That's wild, isn't it?
So anyways, so yeah,
I love that idea. I think that's, you're so right. We are in like the Matrix. But
I mean, in some form or fashion,
something's happening.
It has to be, right? So who knows? I mean, that's part of the, people talk about dying and things like that, and I'm like, what? It's like, isn't that just another great adventure into the unknown? Like, we don't know what happened. So it's like, I think about death often, one, just to make sure that I'm paying attention to life, because it's every second it's falling away. And as Alan Watts says, is like, the more you accept death, the more you actually enjoy life, because you realize how precious it is.
Yeah, life is
like, I think about life or death, and I'm just like, I'm kind of I'm not ready for it. And, I still, but I'm like, there's days where I'm like excited for it, because I'm just like, what is that transition going to be like? Is that going to be like when you get up to the top of a roller coaster and it finally just drops and you're just like, or whatever it is. So, or jumping out of an airplane to skydive.
Right, exactly.
Anyways.
Oh man, it's
So
so interesting.
Go ahead.
Huh? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just said, you asked me about my childhood, and
Yeah,
I just wanted to honor the questions you asked me. So
no, I love that, and I think that's what shaped, who you are today. And but I wonder, like, obviously there's no roadmap, there's no handbook to this industry that we're in. When you got into it and really went into it, how did you, like, did you have any idea of the things that you were going to face?
No, but like, do you every day, like when you step out the door every day, do you have any idea what's going to happen? Like, you have, maybe you have an idea because you've driven that route to work before or whatever, but at the end of the day, you look back, you're like, man, that didn't go the way I thought. So
Right.
no, like my innocent adolescent mindset, which, and I don't say that based off an age, because I'm just now actually starting, the veil just recently has lifted after 20 some years of pursuing this, that I'm like, oh, like, it's one of those things. I don't know if everybody, I feel like most people experience it, but that, because we're taught that as children, which is like, it's that saying, let the best man win. And that is such a false, misleading concept, because I know, like, the best baseball player, the best NASCAR driver, the best physicist or whatever, you're not taking into account biases and socioeconomic issues and popularity. Like, if that was true, there's people that are famous, rich and famous, that wouldn't be rich and famous, but they're rich and famous because they did something, from a sex tape to, making pet rock or whatever it is, that, or, fed the masses, or reality TV. Like, there's, the only, so if that was true, there would be a lot of people that wouldn't be successful, and there would be a lot of other people who aren't successful now that would be at the top. Like, I've heard this many times when people talk about business. They're like, well, if the Harvard business teachers were really good at business, they wouldn't be teaching business at Harvard, because they'd be running an empire.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Yeah. So my point to all this is, my adolescent mind was, well, if this person's at the top, it's because they're the best. And if I'm not at the top, it's because I'm not the best. As opposed to understanding what I've been trying to figure out and wrap my brain around, and my ego and everything else around, is, how do I take me and reveal my best self?
Mm-hmm.
And in honoring that, my audience and things find me and honor that. And you can't really control at what level that is celebrated.
Right.
Especially in a society that's so controlled and manipulated by media and emotions and, like, product placement and everything else, that it's like you were trying to appease these people. Like, I hear it all the time from actors, is like, well, I want to, I want to be successful or whatever, but I don't want to have to take off my clothes. And I'm like, well, you don't have to take off your clothes. You just have to make really good, whatever it is you're passionate about, really make that the best. But society does reward a certain type of content or whatever it is, but that, and that's, it's so big that they think that's the only way.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But then you look at, like, a Prince or something like that, who made their own music and put everything into it, and it was so good.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to somebody the other day about, like, there's 8 billion people in the world. Like, you only need a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent of that audience to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, we have, at least for me, had this thing of, like, it has to be, the whole world has to be on board. Like, Tom Cruise is easily the most recognizable person in the world. Mm-hmm. And not even half the world likes him or
right.
goes to his movies or whatever. So, right. But he doesn't lose sleep over that. He's still living, so for me, no, like, the biggest challenge for me in my journey, I went into it thinking it was completely different than what it is. And that's not just this career, but life.
Right.
And I thought it was more so like, oh, well, if you do a good job, and you're really talented, they'll, just like anything else, if your product is really good, people will buy it. But it's like, but without marketing, and they're like, if I tell people all the time, if you have the cure for cancer, nobody knows about it, you're not saving any lives.
Right.
So there's so many other moving parts to it. And it's been very difficult. And I think it is for a lot of people who are truly artists at heart.
Exactly.
To realize there's a hybrid of art and business. Mm-hmm. And so many people who are about the art, they're like, well, I'm an artist, I'm not going to sell out. And it's like, if you're a painter and you don't sell a painting, you don't have money to buy more paint to make another painting.
Right.
So there's a balance. And then there's the people who are just like, we'll do anything for money and fame. And that's the other end of that. So it's a hybrid. And for me, my journey has been self-sabotaging, to be honest with you. I wanted to be an actor. I knew that from second grade. I saw Top Gun. That blew my mind. My dad, all the exposure. And then I did a play in second grade. I was cast in a play, which I didn't audition for. It was just like something for Grandparents' Day. They threw together, and a guy dropped out. And then they were like, here, Brent, you do it. And I got to play cowboy, and it was for Grandparents' Day. And I had like one line. And I remember afterwards, I was like, this is awesome. Because I actually, prior to that, I remember like there's a time period when one week I want to be a firefighter like my dad. The next week I want to be like a jet pilot, like Top Gun. Another week I want to be this. And I remember at a very young age having this sadness come over me, because I was like, I can't do it all in one lifetime. I don't even know how I like had that awareness at such a young age, but I did. And then in second grade, when I did that little play, and I realized, I was like, if I'm an actor, I can do it all.
Yeah, exactly.
So I always want to be an actor, but being in the Midwest and everything, like, there's not a lot of dreamers. And even though there's a lot of creative, talented people, hardly if anybody follows their dreams. And all through high school and everything else, like my guidance counselors, like I was made fun of and everything. So and the whole thing with my dad, and I ended up telling my dad, I know what I want to be. And I thought because of our whole bond, he would be excited. And I was like, I want to be an actor when I grow up. And he was like, that's a hobby. That's not a real career. You can never make money at it. And like, from that moment, like I went into the closet, and so for years I didn't practice it or anything else. And then in high school, I started doing drama. We had a Reader's Theater, which was kind of like these Disney shows we put on. We'd practice, and then we'd go around the township and put it on for the elementary school and stuff like that. But still, there was no like guidance, and I didn't really commit to it because I didn't have confidence in myself. And then so I ended up joining the military as a combat photographer, just to get out into the world. I started making short films because I was a combat photographer. We had the equipment and everything. I started learning how to make films and edit them and things like that. But then I got out of the Marine Corps, and I came up to Los Angeles. Well, I did. I went back to Indianapolis for a short period of time, because I still didn't commit to that dream. And then I finally signed up for an acting class out here. I moved out here, and I took an acting class, and I was so insecure. I'd go to my teacher and I'd be like, hey man, if I'm not good, just tell me. And he's like, dude, like, just you're fine. And it got to a point where at the end of the class, it was like a 6-month or 8-month class or whatever it was. At the end of it, he brought in some industry people to watch us kind of do like a showcase. And one of the agents approached me, and she's like, hey, I think you got talent, and you got, and I was 22 at the time. And she's like, I think you got talent and everything else, and I'd like to represent you. Which is like a dream, for somebody. And so, of course, naturally, what I did is I packed up and I left.
Yeah.
And I went to the East Coast for like 5 years. I continued doing like short films and things like that, but it's like I sabotaged that. I finally made myself come back 5 years later. So I'm now 28, something like that. And I jumped into it, and then I started teach, and then I got a chance to teach at the studio I was studying at, and I naturally was a good teacher. But I started making the most money I'd ever made consistently, and then I allowed myself to be hijacked by that, and I kept sabotaging myself up until literally this past few months, that I finally said, you know what, I've been playing the victim my whole life. I blame my dad because of that moment, and I've blamed my social economic upbringing and all this other stuff. but I look at all these other people like a 50 Cent, Jay-Z, Tyler Perry, all these people who came from even harder, less resources, and they just honored their dream and kept at it. And I'm just like, I have no effing excuse. And I'm not the victim anymore. And so I committed that this year is going to be the year that I'm going all in. It's like, I put all this effort and energy into working for other people and everything. And like going, well, I'm going to class. Well, I'm auditioning.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the people that inspire me, I look up to, like they're like, I'm doing it myself. I'm not asking permission or anything. And so I'm like, if I was to commit the same time and energy every day that I do working for other people or hoping and dreaming, where would I be in a year?
Exactly.
And so literally I committed to that. I said, this year is going to be the year that I'm going to build my empire. I don't care if I don't get an audition. I don't care if I book a job or not. I'm creating it.
Right.
I'm doing what I in the past 20 years that I haven't done, I'm going to finally do, and I'm going to commit 100% to this dream. And I came back from holiday and sat down on, this is last Monday, but I sat down on a Monday and started writing a script, and in 5 days had a feature film script.
That's awesome. Which
then led to another script that I'm writing right now, and like creatively all this stuff. And I'm so excited in a way that I haven't been really since I moved to LA and when I was younger, and like looking at it as like this big thing. But
yeah,
it definitely hasn't been the journey that I expected. And I didn't really, I'll tell you, when I first moved to LA, I was asking older people for their mentorship, and the older generation, and I say older, they weren't much older, but the older generation's mentality was, well, I had to figure it out the hard way, so you do too. And nobody would share the information. Like, it's not like now where there's actors round tables and actors on actors and off camera with Sam Jones and all these people in the industry sharing their information. It was literally, I had a 55-year-old guy say, well, if I tell you, you're gonna take my jobs. And I'm just like, I'm 28 years old. You and I are not competing but that was the mentality. So yeah. I've literally had to figure it out on my own the whole time.
Exactly.
And it's been hard, but it's like, I have to believe that I had a realization the other day with Hollywood, and just how the realization of how truly political and everything it is now, and with everything that's going on, and just so many different areas of it. And I'm just like, you know what? In my mind, Hollywood's closed off to me. And I told my friend the other day, I was like, I'm okay with, don't even offer me a job, because don't give me a glimmer of hope, because then I'll back off the throttle on doing it the way I'm supposed to. And I really truly believe, with the pandemic and everything else, of all these doors being closed, and they continually, it keeps getting tighter and tighter, to where it's like there's no place for me to go. Like this dream that I've been wanting to live, and the avenue that I've I thought was the right avenue, and that I've tried to do, like literally, like all these casting offices and production offices that I've been working to get into for 12, 15 years, I was finally getting traction, and then the shutdown happened, and then mandates and all these other things just kept piling on top. And I realized, I was like, all these doors are closing in order to force me to look at and go, you are so much bigger than this, going up the ladder and working for other people. Like you're supposed to do, you're like a Tyler Perry. You're supposed to create your own empire, to truly have freedom to create the way you want to, which has always been my dream, and on the large scale. So is it the path? No. But as hard as it's been, looking back now and where I am now, I truly see that it was a blessing, because it's, whether you're religious and you believe in Bible, Jesus Christ, God, whatever it is, or spiritual or whatever it is, but it's like, if you really look at it in the sense of everything's happening in your favor, if you lean into that, I've like, where I'm at now is like leaning into it and going, okay, if that door closed, it's just all these doors closing are actually creating an avenue for me to follow,
Exactly.
so that I don't wander off.
Mm-hmm.
And even though like my ego and everything wants to go, but I want that. I want that. And it's like, but that's not for you. And thank God I didn't get the things that I wanted at the time,
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen so many people self-destruct
Oh my God, yeah.
because they didn't know how to handle the fame or the money or anything else. And I wouldn't have either. Like I couldn't even handle a lot of not having fame and success. Like imagine if it just dropped on my lap. So now it's like I feel like I'm at in the driver's seat driving the car for the first time.
That's great.
I've done it a little bit here and there, like these spurts, but to like really be like, I'm all in on me, and there's no other, I'm not even entertained that there's other avenues, that it's fifth. I heard this clip. This is what kind of tipped the scales for me. There's this clip of 50 Cent talking, and he says on YouTube, and he says, if you realize that nobody owes you anything and you don't owe anybody anything, you realize that it's all on you. And that's not a bad thing, because then you realize that your success and your failure is all on your shoulders, and you can control it. You can harness that. And I was like, you're right. And that's when it was like, oh my God, I've been playing the victim. I've been da 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 da.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, if it's all on me, that means that there's not luck involved. There's not like all these other, I can make it happen or I cannot. And right now I haven't been. But if I put the energy in, what is it? There's a quote is, intelligent people understand there's cause and effect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm done asking permission to be a part of your club.
Right.
And I don't have to be a part of your club to be successful.
Exactly. It's like everyone wants a seat at the table when you can just build your own table.
Well, yeah. I mean, Dame Dash, I was listening to him, and he goes about the music industry. He goes, when they went to sell Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt, he's like, they wanted us to sign over the masters to them.
Right.
And he's like, why would I sign over ownership so you could give me 20%, you could keep 80% of what I created?
Right. What kind of deal is that?
Yeah. And so it's like, that's insanity, that I am the creator. You can't do what I do. And so I'm going to take my intellectual property and I'm going to hand it to you because I think you know better than me, or you're more important than me, or whatever. And so there, you could give me 20% and reap 80% benefit off of what I came up with. You didn't come up with. You might have the checkbook.
Right.
But I can make money. Many other people in the world can make money. You can't come up with Die Hard. You can't come up with Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't come up with Reasonable Doubt.
Right.
You can't come up with Get Rich or Die Trying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's shifting that mindset and going, man, I've been begging these people. I've been giving my power away, going, please let me in your club.
Yeah.
And them not seeing my talent, my ability. And I'm just like, why am I asking permission to these people? And I'm not saying they're bad people in the sense that they're like, fuck Brent Harvey or anything like that. No, they're not outright going, Brent, let's close this guy out from the business. But for whatever reason, I'm not the hot thing right now. I don't have the look that blah, blah, and all this other stuff. But I know I'm talented.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken me a while to be able to say that confidently, but I know I'm talented. I was talented 20 years ago when I didn't know what I was doing and I wasn't really that good, but I still had something to offer. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite projects I ever did was a web series. Mm-hmm. I shot on an iPhone 7. I shot 9 episodes with 46 actors over a 2-week period, just like a couple hours here and there over a 14-day period that was actually spread out over like a month. But I had the most fun because it's like I called up all my actor friends and things and students that, you know, I'd worked with that I always wanted to work with on set, not just in the classroom. And I just had so much fun because I got to work with all my friends, and we threw it together, and it was a kind of a challenge to myself because I was always telling my students, like, create your own content, create your own opportunities. And I had one come to me and go, Brent, I'd love to make a web series. I want to make this web series, but I mean, I need $60,000. I'm like, what do you need $60,000 for? They're like, well, because, you know, I needed to pay for this. And I'm like, you know, fuck that, man. If all these actors that you want to work with, if they don't bring something to the project, like a following or value that actually increases the value of the product, then you giving them a job is allowing them, number one, the opportunity to get exposed, but to work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, as long as you don't abuse that, like, go, I'm going to shoot this thing for 3 weeks, 12 hours a day. But I'm like, so my challenge, and I kept telling him, you can do it for less. He's like, I don't know. So finally I said, watch, I'm going to shoot a web series and I'm going to figure out how to do it for no money. I'm going to make it really good. And I'm going to get all these actors. So I ended up writing it. I wrote it in a week. I wrote all 9 episodes in like 5 days. They were like 5 to 6 minute episodes. We shot it on an iPhone, so we wouldn't have to do camera setups and everything else. And
Right.
we had a boom pole, which was like literally like a broom pole with a microphone taped to it and a H2N recorder. And if I was in front of the camera, somebody would, or if I was in front of the camera, somebody's holding the and somebody else was booming, and then we
Right.
rotated out, and it was just a group effort.
I love it.
We shot this thing. I did it because I asked people to come in for like 2 hours at most. If they weren't like me, I was the main actor and a few other people that were a part of the production. But people were like, yeah, I'll come for a couple hours. I'm not doing anything on Tuesday. So I wasn't like taking up a lot of their time.
Yeah.
And it was they came and they were willing to do it for free and everything else. We shot it, with some food and a few costs here and there. I made it for under $350.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
And a big part, I think 250 of that was buying the gimbal to put the phone on so it had a smooth, and then we ended up found out this like 8 months later, found out we could submit it for the Emmys, and it ended up getting in the running for nominations for Prime Time Emmys.
Nice.
That opened up so many doors for me. People were like,
awesome.
you have something that's up for 2 Primetime Emmys, and all of a sudden people. So my whole point to that was, it was like creating my own opportunities, and even though like that was one of those times that I went all in, but even off of that, I still defaulted back to, well, but I'd love to pitch this as a series, and instead of just making it a series, right. They can't create that. They can do marketing. They can like, they're good. They can do casting. They're really good at these things, but it's like, to create this intellectual property, they're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so why am I trying to give away my intellectual property to somebody else so they can reap 80-90% of it and give me crumbs, and me go, oh, thank you so much. What else can I create to give to you to make tons of money off of? Well,
I think too, I think that's kind of how they've conditioned us in a way. Like, it's like you have people like who passed on like out the music industry, like your Prince and people like that, talking about owning your masters, and Michael coming out and talking on camera before he died about like he's going to take over Sony and all this stuff. He bought masters of like to people that didn't, like, other artists who were maybe couldn't own their masters, and he gave them back their rights. And so he was trying to change it, realizing, I think this kind of thing is like changing the industry within, from inside out. And it's really difficult when you're in the industry to try to change it from the end. Like, so Michael, of course,
Well,
He goes away. And then Prince,
yeah.
it's like all these
You
amazing people. You really don't win at the end of the day because who has the Masters now? They're gone. Whitney Houston, like all these,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like, the old saying, which is true, not just about our industry, but about any system, is you can't change the industry.
Right.
Whatever
Exactly.
it is, the government, what you can't change it. But what you can do is create a new system that makes the old one obsolete.
Right.
And I think Tyler Perry lit that fire.
Yeah.
Because I see people like Kevin Hart and other people going, oh shit, that's what I want. I'm going to do. I didn't know. Kevin Hart admittedly, he's like, I didn't even realize you could buy studios and rent it out to other people till you did it. So he did that again out of a necessity. It's one of those things when he talks about it, he's like, all these, even though all this success in Hollywood, they were like, we don't know who you are. And
Yeah.
and so all those doors closed, which he made him go, you know what, I'm just going to go do it myself, which put him in the driver's seat. As hard as it was a harder path in the sense of egotistically and mentally and probably physically putting in the effort. But in the long run, he has created an ecosystem that feeds itself. He creates something, he funds it. He puts it out. He puts it out there. Excuse me. It makes money. That money goes back into the central bank of his own, which then funds the other projects. It's an ecosystem,
Right.
and now Hollywood comes to him to pay him billions of dollars to use their studio space, like, and it's just like, and when you see that, you're like, why weren't we doing this sooner? Like, why did it take Tyler Perry or the time period to do that? Because it could have been done. I mean.
Yeah, I listen, I agree with you. I literally thought the same thing. I said, why, we have all these amazing people in the industry. But again, I think a lot of it is just, again, it's fear. Just because you're in the industry and you're at a certain level, I think you kind of get to a point of like, well, I don't want to like not have the system as my,
Well, again,
backing me up. And
that's a self-confidence thing. And that's a thing of,
yeah.
I want the easy path. And I just heard this the other day. If you do the things, if you do the things that are hard, life will be easy. If you do the things that are easy, life will be hard.
Exactly.
And when I see people that I look up to, inspire me and things like that, but when I see people at the top of our industry, or any industry, but our industry, that have been doing it at a high level for so many years, getting paid 25, 10, 15, 20, 25 million dollars per picture, whatever it is, for years. And then they go, well, I have this passion project, but nobody will give me the money to make it. I'm just like, yeah, you have all these resources and you're allowing these people to get to control whether you birth that into reality or not. And I see, like, I've been listening to these roundtables and stuff like that, and I hear these producers, even like a Jerry Bruckheimer and things like that, going, well, it's hard to get a movie made because the money. And I'm just like,
what?
You haven't created a system that separates you from the dependency of that to where they get to dictate. It's a choice. It's always a choice, but especially at that level, it's a choice. And where you look at a Tyler Perry who sits there and goes, I'm not relying on anybody but myself. And if I want to and I'll tell you, Kevin Costner is definitely a perfect example, because he multiple times has had passion projects and he funded them himself. And he's like, if it fails, it fails. I'm using my own money because I believe in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, and it's not that I don't think people shouldn't go out and get money and, like, the whole thing of using your own money. But it's like, the other thing to that is, if you really believe in it and you're asking somebody else to believe in it so much to put up the money, if you're not willing to put the money up, do you really believe in it?
No, you don't.
Right? Because you're asking somebody else to take the financial risk that you're not willing to take. Right?
Exactly.
But I don't say that to judge those people or label them in any sense, but I do it to bring myself to reality and go, Brent, the solution isn't getting to the top, because I still see these people, these artists that are begging for jobs. Like I was watching an actors roundtable and they're like, well, I'm just grateful to have a job. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Like you are the why the business is in business. They need you. Like you're a necessity. And I think we haven't been looking at it like that for so long. And so I feel like because people look, I mean, all around the world, I mean, if you think about everyone in the world, no matter where they are, I have friends all over, they're always like, oh, my dream is to go to Hollywood. I'm just thinking, man, have they really institutionalized? They really have sunk their teeth into culture everywhere. Like everyone wants that like thing. It's
it's exciting. It's fucking exciting, man. It's the flashing bolt. Like there's a sexiness to it, which I get. Like I still, there's a part of me that wants to have that experience, but it's changing the mindset of going, I don't need these people to get to that point.
Yeah. See, but yes, I agree. I totally agree. But then again, it's like those stories, people who seemingly have it all have like the worst ending of their storylines. Like it's like, wow, if this is what you have to do and this is what life is at the top, I don't want that because that's not a good ending. Like
but Meosha, why is that? That is because they're putting their future, their livelihood in the hands of other people going, if I want to eat, I need you to hunt for me.
Yeah,
And in doing that, you literally put your livelihood in the hands of somebody else who then can dictate when and how much you eat. We were flying on a plane to London and back, and as we're watching these movies, big budget studio films, all the way down to these indie films on the plane, and 80% of them I couldn't get 15, 20 minutes into because they were so bad. But I had this epiphany. I'm just like, oh my God, this is distribution. So if I can make a feature film, because you can't sell a short film. Right. There's not a market for it. You can take it to film festivals and everything else. You can't sell it, right? Nobody's going to pay a ticket to go watch a short film. Mm-hmm. But a feature film, you can. So if I make a feature film, scrounge up a little bit of, if I'm intelligent about it, which in creative, more so in creative than I should say intelligent. If I'm creative about how I put this thing together and I can shoot it like a paranormal activity or something like that, something that is digestible in the sense of the cost. Mm-hmm. And I make it, and if I make it the best, it may not be the best film in the world, but if I make it the best that I can, make it entertaining, make it fun, make it whatever, and then take it and get distribution, even on a fucking airplane, and it generates a little bit of money. That's one brick of the building. Right. And then I make another one and I add a brick. And if I just keep adding these bricks, which we call a catalog, right? Now I got all these bricks that then make the empire, the building. And it's like that is more long lasting.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at now. But the whole thing is like, if everybody out there is not building, if every artist out there is not building their own empire. And when I say empire, it doesn't have to be this massive global whatever.
Right.
But if you're not building your own self-sustaining ecosystem that feeds you when you want to be fed and how much you want to be fed, right, you are reliant on other people who then have the power to dictate when, how, and if, and how much you eat.
Absolutely.
And then you're sitting there going, please, can I be an artist? It's like, that's insanity. You're asking permission to create. Mm-hmm. And that's where I've been for 20 years. But I'm done. I'm not the victim. I'm not playing small, and I'm not asking permission.
I love that. No, I love that. And I think that, it's a wonderful place to be, that, you're unplugged and now you are, what you want. And I think that's what, if like I said, if most artists wake up, we would take over. But that's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Well, I
mean, some of us is going to wake up for sure. But it can for sure. But it's too powerful of a machine.
Again, we don't have to defeat the machine.
Well, yeah.
We have to come up with a system that doesn't rely on the machine, and the machine falls apart.
But see, that's the thing. I don't think the machine will fall apart because they don't want it to fall apart. They're making too much money. I mean, there's
Right, but
billions of trillions of dollars going through it, right? Like, do you think these
right.
people are going to be like, yeah, let's give them the power to, like, think about it through history. Let's go with the Black Wall Street. There was once a Black Wall Street, and then what happened? Destroyed. Before
Right.
you can get over, wait, and have your own system, someone comes and just knocks it over. Like, I think that's
Right.
the whole power play.
There's people out there with what is it, fans only or OnlyFans?
OnlyFans.
And there's people like making millions of dollars playing video games, watching, filming themselves playing video games, and people pay. They got millions of subscribers, and they make millions of dollars a month, letting people watch them play a video game. And you're telling me that there's only Tyler Perry and Hollywood, and you can't figure out a way to create something that you could even put on an airplane or YouTube or anything else. But just even the airplane, these fucking stupid movies that made no sense.
Yeah.
But somebody sat down, put pen to paper, and then saw it through and said, I'm going to get it cast. I'm going to get some money, however. And then I'm going to call up these distribution channels, and I'm going to get this sold for, even if it's a couple bucks per view or whatever it is. And they built a brick.
Yeah. Or
you look at the Paranormal Activity. They spent $10,000 making that thing. And it's so cheesy. Just the camera work. They use the security cameras, which I think is brilliant, but it's low production.
Yeah.
The story's not even really that good. But then it made $1 billion off of $10,000. Like, and you're telling me
you can't do
that
it.
There's only two sources of food.
Right.
But that's the insanity of it. And when you step out of the matrix, as we were talking about earlier, when you step out of the matrix and look at that, you go, this is insanity. I've been playing a game of chess, and I'm the pawn, and I've allowed everybody else to be the king and the queen and the bishop and everything else. And I'm asking them, please let me survive. Please, like, you're not playing the lead character in your own. Talking about that, I have students all the time when they come to me and complain about stuff, and I'm just like, what's your dream role? And they're like, well, I'd love to be a Marvel superhero that does. What would your powers be? It'd be this. And there's not enough female representation or black representation or da-da-da-da-da. And there's not enough characters. And they tell me that they go down the whole line, which I'm not criticizing. You're right. Yeah. There's not enough representation, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, if you write it, you don't have to fight anybody else in the casting room for that role. You write it and you shoot it. And guess what? You got to play. If it's really about you playing your dream role. Yeah. But what you're saying is like, no, if you don't do that, then what you're saying is it's about getting permission to play my dream role and everybody believing in me and making money and being famous, as opposed to, I just want to have this experience.
Right.
Imagine if you're like, I want to ride the world's biggest roller coaster. What would you say? You'd be like, cool, go do it. But what if people are like, well, I want to ride the biggest roller coaster, but what if they don't let me in? Please, can I come into can I come in and ride your ride and like everything? It's like, why are you asking permission? Just ride the fucking roller.
Right, exactly.
Now, does it have to be a feature film? No, but if you look at a Tom Holland was putting videos on his Instagram way before he was cast as Spider-Man, but he was showing his tumbling skills.
Exactly.
So that when the opportunity came, he's like, look, I can do this. And they're like, this guy can just do his own stunts already. That's a plus. But he was already, and this is where the whole thing is like, prepare before, if you're prepared, you don't have to get ready or whatever.
Exactly.
It's like, if you were to film even a short film or even a 5-minute, like whatever, of you playing that superhero, people then can go, we never thought of that. They'd be a good person. And you get to cut the line.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I'm going to sit here in the back and stay quiet. And hopefully somebody will recognize me. I hope I win the lottery.
And that's going to continue to happen, that perpetuation of that.
Not for me.
No, but you know what I mean? For a lot of people out there, unfortunately. But no,
well, not. If we keep having these conversations, but
hopefully, just like racism, right? We keep having the conversation, but it's still here, right? It's not, it's like a lot of things. I think just things are just here. And I think some people are unfortunately going to be able to wake up and, like you said, be a Tyler Perry or be better or have their own, like continue to, to do that. Because if everybody did it, then.
Well, again,
so you have,
look, I'm not negating racism and
no, absolutely not.
All these other things don't exist.
Yeah.
My question is, just like with the thing of, of underrepresentation in films or, or not being able to play your dream role or whatever, it always comes down, and I say this to myself, this is not just me like preaching. I say this to myself when I hear the excuses come up in my head is, what the fuck are you going to do about it then? I hear what you're saying. There's a problem. What are you going to do? What are you doing every day? Are you actively taking action to have the conversation about racism or this or that? And you were talking about Black Wall Street and things like that. I've heard a couple different lectures on this recently. I wasn't like intending to, but the conversation led to it. And there's a interesting thing in the Black community that happens, that when somebody from the Black community becomes successful, they leave the community and take all their money and they spend it in the white community or other communities. And then the Black community goes, well, number one, they're like, we need to stay in our community. But then the problem they found is that the people in the Black community don't show up to work on time and don't show up. And it's like, and so then of course the people are going to go elsewhere because they've got these resources and so there's this, double-edged sword, but they found this is like, number one, we need to stop taking the resources out of our community. Number two is the people in the community have to show up to deserve the people to stay in the community. So it
absolutely, yeah,
right. But it's understanding things like that it's like, okay, if you have the resources, are you consciously going, hey, I need to stop putting all my resources into this community over here. I need to make sure, like a Nipsey Hussle, they bring up the conversation about Nipsey Hussle is like he stayed in his community and they murdered him. Yeah. And which, like, what the fuck? So it's like the guy's trying to, and then he gets murdered. And so it's like how, so there's more.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's systematic. We have to unlearn these behaviors in our communities. It's a lot of it is just so deeply woven in a lot of our community of people that I see all the time, unfortunately.
But it's having the conversation and understanding it and going, if we're the community, we need to be conscious of providing value for these people. And if we're the people with resources that have left the community or are looking to leave, we need to at least whatever. And it continues and it builds that, right? Yeah. And so that, whether it's in that Black community, whether it's in the entertainment industry, whether it's whatever the topic is, the question comes down to, what are you, the individual, doing every day to change it?
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying change the world, because like you said, is like the industry. Okay, don't change the industry. What are you creating every day so that you're not reliant on it, but you create your own ecosystem?
Right, exactly.
If your problem is like that topic of the Black community, if your problem is whether you're on one side or the other, what are you doing every day to push to make it better?
Exactly.
Or if you're the shop owner, are you making sure that you're providing the best value? Are your employees showing up on time? So if that person shows up they receive the service. So they go, I want to spend more money in the community or whatever it is.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it really comes down to uh, the 50 cent thing. It's all on you.
That's it.
It's all on you.
Absolutely.
What are you doing every day? Whether it's education, whether you're teaching it, whether you're learning it, whether like we're having conversations like this. But when it comes to the arts, it's like it's when we were kids, we didn't ask permission to create.
Right,
When did
exactly.
we cross that line that we needed to ask permission to do the thing that we say we love?
We got older and society
No, we
pressures.
bought in and said, "Oh, this is the only way."
Yeah, I think too, I think sometimes they always say don't lose the innocence of, that childlike state, because that's where, there wasn't, you could imagine anything. And it's like we get older, people say, well, that's crazy. You can't
Right.
imagine that. It's like, well, why not? You know, why do I have to lose that little kid, And I think
We
that's where the
bought into the
magic
lie.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, I listen, I love this conversation. And you have to definitely come back on. And I mean, definitely this was so good. Um, thank you, no, for sharing like your heart and
Well,
just
thanks for
exactly.
giving me the opportunity to. I'll say
No,
this real
yeah,
quick before I know we're running out of time here again, but the thing that I shifted in my brain,
yeah,
the other thing is because I'd sit there and go, oh, where will I get the money or da da da. I shifted that from I can't afford it, I can't whatever, I don't know how, to if something comes up and I want to do something, I change it to how can I? And
exactly.
as soon as I do that, my imagination starts kicking off and that's where that creative problem solving comes in. And I figure out a way to do it,
Yeah,
to achieve
exactly.
it, is if you switch it to how can I?
How can I? I love that. That's wonderful.
Because you're asking universe, God, whatever you believe in, you're asking how, okay, this is what I want to do. How can I? And then all of
Exactly.
a sudden that imagination kicks in and starts going, well, what if you tried this? What if you tried this? And you're like, oh shit, there's all, but if you go, I can't, you've
Mhm.
already closed the door off to any other possibility.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. Now, this was so many amazing, beautiful gems in this episode. So I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And
I appreciate yours.
of
Thanks for
course,
having me.
yeah. Where can people find you really quick before we go?
Aholeproductions.com, AWHOLE. So it's like a whole actor, a whole production,
Yeah,
and it's a play on words too, but aholeproductions.com, and on Instagram, Brent Harvey Films, at Brent Harvey Films.
love it. I love it. Thank you so much again. And thank you all for listening. And
Yeah.
always remember to live, love, laugh. All right, guys. See you later.